Our next speaker is a wonderful member of our community who's become a good friend of mine as well. I'd like to introduce Miss Melissa Kushner, who's not got only one project, but two projects that she is championing, and she will also tell us about the difference she's making in her own life and through connections she's made here in this community.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Jonah, for inviting me here tonight. Talk about connections. I'm standing here tonight because I met Rachel here, and it's just been a flourishing friendship since. But what I wanted to talk to all of you about tonight was actually my 10-year journey of being a nonprofit leader, and I have 10 minutes, so we're talking 1 minute a year, so we better get started. But what the journey is really about is, in fact, a nexus of relationships that I made in Malawi, the country I've been working in over the last 10 years, and a nexus of relationships that I've made at events like these, in New York City, and in everywhere. And you never know who you're going to meet, and you never know where it can lead you. And so I also just recommend that you be open, you talk to people, you welcome to hear new ideas. I think we all can learn from each other and inspire each other to shape a better future. And so getting back to those 10 years and 1 minute per year, I'm going to jump in. So I want to start and just have everybody look around the room and think about this fact for 1 second. In Malawi, the country I work in Southeastern Africa, 1 in every 14 people is an orphan. That's a child under the age of 18 who has lost one or more parent. The question is who is going to care for this next generation of leaders? The future leaders who could be sitting in this room or in rooms in the capital of Malawi, future social entrepreneurs, business leaders, and lawyers. I've been on a journey to find an answer to this question over the last 10 years, and in Malawi, we're making real progress. In 2006, when I was 26 years old, I am not that old. When I was 26 years old, I founded Goods for Good, and it actually all started in this room. And I think my first boss as an intern is in this room, Amir Dosal. Talk about meeting people at Nexus and things coming full circle. But I started as an intern at the UN, and I think the first event that I ever participated in was in this very room. And I had the opportunity to travel to Malawi. On that trip, I thought I would really mostly just think about the children and what we could do to help them. But not only did their plight stick with me, what stuck with me was the amazing devotion of the leaders in that community. People across Malawi who saw the problems of orphans and self-organized to deal with it. Those were the inspiration for Goods for Good. Those people. In fact, one person in particular, Chris Goma, who is a Malawian man who lives in a village, who's a subsistence farmer, who saw the issue of orphans in his community and decided to start an organization. That organization set out to provide education, nursery school, after-school programs, health programs, feeding programs for the orphans in his community. And Chris himself was a subsistence farmer, so he didn't exactly have a ton of money to start an organization. But 7 years later, Chris's organization helps hundreds of children in his own village through his and his local community leaders' efforts. That's an amazing thing. And so when I started Goods for Good, I knew that I needed to move to Malawi and create a nexus of contacts there, to learn from leaders there, to understand how we could help to affect real change. And so that's what I did. In the year that I lived and worked alongside community leaders like Chris, I learned two very important things. I learned, one, that the future of Malawi's children was in the hands of its community, and that if we could help the community to help the children, that we could shape the future of Malawi. And so what I realized was that these community organizations held the power to provide care for these kids, but what they lacked was the money to do it. And so Goods for Good missions was clear. We would provide resources to these community organizations to help people like Chris to care for the community. In the first 4 years in operation, we repurposed hundreds of tons, not exactly 32,000 assault rifles, but we did repurpose 32 or AK-47s, different, I don't know enough about but we did repurpose hundreds of tons of new and unused goods. We're talking school supplies, school uniforms, school shoes, and provided them to the communities to provide to the children. Those resources helped put thousands of children back in school, and they made a huge difference. In fact, one girl that I remember meeting, Gertrude, a 14-year-old orphan who had dropped out of school to care for her 6 younger siblings, told me that with Goods for Good support, she and her siblings were able to go back to school with something as simple as a pen. But 2 years ago, spending time with my community, learning what other people were doing in rooms like this and across Africa, I began to feel like we could do more. We could do better. In fact, I was sitting with Chris again, who's been a pivotal person in shaping my organization, the local leader. And he said to me, Melissa, we can't continue to run our organization on donations from Goods for Good. We need to find a way to generate our own resources. And Chris was right. I wanted to know if we could help our communities not just by giving them resources, but helping them to generate our own. And that's something that I know a lot of us think about in this room is entrepreneurship. How can we generate resources and change the shape of inequality in our world? And so what I did was spend 2 years basically working with our leaders and my team in Africa to find an answer. Could we help these very poor rural communities in Africa to generate their own resources to help the orphans? The answer we came to is we can, and it's called community enterprise. Community enterprise is a small business started in partnership with community organizations to help fund sustainable orphan care. We set out in those 2 years not just to prove the concept, but to assess the different types of viable businesses in Malawi. So what businesses could make the most money? What businesses would make sense for our rural communities? The rules of the game was that each business should have a 25% return on investment within the first year. And I think you business people in the room would say, that's not too bad, right? 25% of getting back 25% in the first year. So that was one of the rules. The second rule was that the business needed to be financially sustainable within Malawi, and that of course it needed to be appropriate for our rural communities. So we settled on 3 businesses: poultry, agriculture, and tailoring. Excuse me. To date, we've launched 9 of these businesses, 6 in tailoring, 2 in poultry, and 1 in agriculture, and we have many, many more in the pipeline. To date, these businesses have employed 120 people in rural communities, which is no small thing. And they've generated over $25,000 in profits, most of which have been reinvested in orphan care. In fact, Gertrude, the 14-year-old orphan I told you about before, is now actually on a school scholarship funded by her community. And her younger siblings are getting nutritional support in the form of food and also school supplies so that that family is now taken care of. And that's all on resources generated by the community for that community's kids. I think it's a pretty beautiful thing. So this model has really taken a combination of Goods for Good skills and understanding how communities work in Malawi with traditional entrepreneurship skills, much of which I learned from people in this very room. This model, I believe, has the power to transform orphan care, not just in Malawi, but across Southern Africa, looking at entrepreneurship as a solution to this rampant problem. And so I think I have 2 more minutes left. I have 2 more quick years to cover. So as Rachel mentioned, I've been working on community enterprise and Goods for Good, power of partnership. And I know that each one of you are going to feel the power of partnership by the end of the day on Friday, if not sooner, maybe even tonight. But partnership has been something that helped Goods for Good first get into Malawi through partnerships with colleagues at the UN. And then further, to figure out how we were going to work in Malawi through partnerships with local organizations like the one Chris Gomer runs. And then helping to grow our work with Goods for Good even bigger through partnerships with NGOs. In fact, one of our partnerships that happened here is in the room with Innovation Africa. So taking complementary programs, bringing them together to help bring about even bigger change in the children of Malawi's lives and in the lives of people in need across our world. And so, in realizing that partnership was such a common thread throughout pretty much every accomplishment that Goods for Good had, I started to think about how did we build these partnerships? And frankly, it was a lot of hard work and a little bit of luck. There weren't as many conferences and, it was just sort of like, who am I sitting next to on the plane? Or who am I sitting next to at NEXUS? But it was really I realized that it shouldn't have to be about luck. And I started to think about creating a place where partnerships were default. It's what happened, where you could easily search for an organization to see what they're doing by topic, by geography, and by location, and to connect with each other in real time. So after envisioning that place for the last 2 years, we've built it. And it's live. We went live 2 months ago, and it's an online and an offline community. A lot of you are wearing the stickers for it. And it's called Nonprofit Share. Nonprofit Share is the first tool completely dedicated to building collaborations across and within the nonprofit sector, so that the partnerships that were so paramount to Goods for Good success don't have to be based on luck, but that they're just part and parcel of what everybody does. And, you know, partnerships can change everything. And we're going to continue to see the work of the nonprofit sector grow and have larger impacts from sites like Nonprofit Share and from conferences like NEXUS. And so I want to bring it to a close. If you want to learn more about Nonprofit Share, we do have a table in the back of the room. There's a fun raffle involved if you're into donuts/croissants. I don't know if you've heard of that, but they're called cronuts. But you can definitely go to the back of the room and find out about that. But I wanted to, in all seriousness, just take it back to what I'm focused on, which is the children of Malawi. And when you work in an environment where 1 in every 14 people is an orphan, there's a lot of work to be done. And I believe that these types of environments where we're networking with each other and we're brainstorming about solutions, we can build tools, community enterprises that transform the lives of children like Gertrude, Nonprofit Share, which helps nonprofits to build better connections and do better work, and so much more, and fill in all of your ideas and all of the new ideas that are going to come out of NEXUS into that blank space. And together, if we can harness the power that we all have, we can continue to build tools to shape our future so that children in Malawi and other generations who wouldn't otherwise have opportunities will be sitting in this room in the years to come. So with that, I just want to thank you, and thank you for listening to my journey, and I encourage you to embark on your own journey and see where it takes you. Thanks.